We are live. I am your host, Jeremy Riss,
It's 6 o'clock.
the alien scientist, and there goes your alarm. Right, it's 6 o'clock, and I am joined by Thornton D. Barnes, TD Barnes, former Black Projects Area 51 Special Projects Manager at out at Area 51. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, you guys can hear me and everything. No, we're not muted. We can hear you. Never mind. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We are live, and yeah. So I'm joined with TD Barnes, the one and only. Guys, if you're not familiar with TD Barnes, you can learn about him through the Roadrunners Association website, Area 51 Special Projects.com, and also what's the Roadrunners website? It's roadrunnersassociateinternational.com. So you guys can check out those websites for more information on the Roadrunners. And I want to ask some questions today about all kinds of stuff, man. First off, let's kind of just start off with your normal recruitment and how you got recruited into this, how you got the job out there.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting story because, Area 51 didn't exist, so it's hard to apply for a job that didn't exist. I actually got recruited by the CIA while I was in the Army. I was at Fort Bliss, Texas. I was in the surface-to-air missiles, radar and missiles. Well advanced in my field. I spent about 2.5 years doing nothing, going to school, and then going to college at night. But anyway, I was way advanced, and they were getting ready to build the A-12 and test it out at Area 51, the spy plane. And the CIA got wind that the Russians had a tall king radar, a new radar, and they needed to know its capability, whether it be able to detect the A-12 in time for the missile to shoot it down. But we knew that U-2 was going to eventually get shot down. And the Russians moved on to Cuba. And so they started flying ghost flights to Cuba using C-97, loaded with electronics, antennas, all over. And I had become known at White Sands and at Fort Bliss for my advancement into surface-to-air missiles, particularly ECM and ECCM. And anyway, the CIA approached me about participating in 2 of those flights, and that was my introduction, and that was Project Palladium, which I'm sure we'll talk about tonight. But that was the CIA was conducting Project Palladium to determine whether or not the Russians would be able to shoot down the A-12. And what we did determine, yes, they would be able to shoot it down. And we never flew another mission. After Gary Power got shot down, we never flew another mission over Russia.
So it was so secret. So when you were first working on the project, you didn't even realize that that this was a secret. You thought it was the YF-12, and you didn't even know it was the A-12. That's how secret this was on the base, right?
Well, not when I got there. Before I actually physically went to Area 51. I got out of the military, and I was on the NASA high range at Beatty, Nevada, which is 45 miles from Area 51. And that radar site was part of what the CIA called the Seven Sisters. The other 6 were air defense radar at Reno, Utah, different places in the region. And every time they'd have a flight at Area 51 with the A-12, they would notify the Seven Sisters, we're going to have a flight today. We'd like for you to monitor it, but don't record it and don't mention it. It's top secret. Of course, they didn't tell us what it was. And then it wasn't much later than that. In 1965, I participated in the speed runs of the YF-12, but I was still with NASA at the time. So we knew we had the Blackbirds. We still didn't know about the A-12. And I didn't know about it until by its name until I went out there. But there were occasions when the CIA would have me track the A-12 when they were certifying the different speeds. As Lockheed was going through Mach 1, Mach 2, and Mach 3 trials. We had at Beatty, we had a velocity recorder because we were tracking the X-15, the XB-70, that sort of thing. So we had that capability. So I was the only one on at NASA that had a clearance for it. And CA they'd call me, we got something we want you to track today and record its velocity. Of course, they didn't identify what it was, and because I didn't have a need to know. But anyway, I track it and then give them the data. And they actually brought me out to the Area 51. I didn't actually go out there until January of '68, and they brought me out there. They want to do some Mach 3 radar cross section evaluations of the A-12 before they shut it down. We already knew that you're getting ready to retire, and the SR-71 was going to take over.
When I was reading about the OPSEC of how they recruited the people and hired them into the project, they said there was 30 people that were hired into this project at Area 51 by the CIA, and you were all screened before for a job that didn't exist yet, that you didn't know existed, and that when you actually got the job, it turned out that 15 of you had were boat guys who had a boat at Lake Mead, and then 15 of you had cabins at Mount Charleston. Yeah, so that was what the breakdown was. So they had specifically picked, people that would be buddy, and
yeah, we had a cabin cruiser on Lake Mead. They deliberately, they recruited the family. It wasn't just the guy. They actually interviewed, checked out the wives. The wife could get you disqualified for working at Area 51 quicker than anything. If they drank too much, they yacked too much. So they had to be the type of families that could tolerate us being gone all week and not being able to tell them where we were or what we were doing. And that's the way it was for years. We'd leave home Monday morning, get on a plane, come home Friday night, and then we'd spend the weekend on the lake. We worked together and then we played together. We had our own secret cove out on Lake Mead, and all those that had boats would the minute we got home, we'd head for the lake, and we'd spend the weekend on the lake then. But the family they picked, most of them were already used to us working on secret projects. That wasn't you. What I did in the Army was top secret, and so the wives were used to us not coming home and talking shop, and so they didn't ask and we didn't tell.
So what about vacation time? Did you guys work through Christmas, or were you out at Area 51, or
No, we got holidays off. It wasn't that bad. The CIA when they started Area 51, they thought the people would live out there, so they actually put in a swimming pool and a bowling alley, everything that we might need, movie theater. We had. Yeah. And they actually figured we'd come to Vegas 3 or 4 times a year. Of course, it didn't work that way, but but that's what they intended at the time.
So what was like the work schedule like that? Were you allowed to go out there and work continuously every, Monday, like every week, with, a couple weeks off a year? What was it kind of like the?
We could take vacation, and we did get the holidays off. Yeah, it wasn't that regulated, and
it wasn't like they made, they had you all out there testing stuff during Christmas because that's when everyone's home on holidays and no one's going to be out there.
They wouldn't plan any tests or anything during those periods.
Do you think that Tic Tac is a real craft, or do you think it's spoofing?
I think it's fake iron. I think it's spoofing.
Yeah.
And you know what? They got so many shapes and too that's showing up. They're seeing all kinds of stuff. Like someone dumped the garbage bag into
it's all stuff that's easy to spoof too. It's not like a what about drone swarms too?
Yeah, I don't know. But think about it. It's basically one system is all that's seeing this. It's not everyone's seeing this.
Yeah.
So I think it was I won't say it's a problem, but it was something they had to solve. That's the purpose of the test. Is can we spoof this thing? And they did. They spoofed it.
You were briefed into a lot of stuff about what was being tested out there, so that's why your first your first guess when you see these Nimitz encounters is saying that you're convinced that it's some of our technology that's
Yeah,
being.
just to repeat what we were doing. So, it just makes sense that you would evaluate any, we always have it, any new system that comes on board. And the thing is, the pilots and the different, not only the people would need to know would even know the test was going on. Chances are that when they send those pilots up, they wouldn't know that they wouldn't know what that they were going to be tested.
You got interviewed by Tyler Rogaway and Brett Tingley on thedrive.com, and you were the whole they've put out a couple articles about this whole Nimitz encounters and stuff. I was wondering if you could comment and talk about this a little bit more. You seem to be on the side that these encounters that we're seeing are our technology.
Absolutely. So this is something, and that's what we did with palladium, and this almost parallels palladium, except it's much advanced because with Project Palladium we didn't have computers yet, so we didn't have the technology capability that we got today. But today the technology is such that there's no telling what they're able to do with technology today. So we were very successful with that, and but that was primitive by today's standards. And the and the fact that the Navy didn't really take it serious when they first did this, we really my thinking is they were evaluating this new radar or this new system, and which is routine. This is something we've always done, and the word just got out, and it's become a big mystery. That's what we were doing with the talking radar. Is we had electronics in the plane that when we would get them to turn on the radar, and then we'd send back a delay return, and we could make them think it's tracking one plane, 10 planes, 20 planes, going, coming, whatever we wanted, and then to test the sensitivity of the radar, its capability. We actually had a submarine off the coast of Cuba, and it would release balloons with little metal spears of different sizes, and we would determine what was the smallest size that radar could pick up. And that's how we determined the sensitivity of it. So we were using it, and so much like this Nimitz thing, they said they saw things in the water. The same thing happened to us with palladium. One of the MiG-15 pilots, Cuban or Russian MiG-15 pilots, swore he saw the target and we were going to fire on it. And of course, everything was electronic. He didn't. We thought he might have seen the snorkel of the submarine, so we shut everything down and had the submarine dive. We don't know what he saw, but the pilot really thought he saw something. We were going to shoot at it.
So, I mean, why do you think the Pentagon is pretending like these are UFOs, they're unidentifieds, when you believe that they know that what these things are?
That's true. The Pentagon never going to admit anything. That's the way we always worked. We had a cover for everything, and so there's no, everybody's expecting the Senate report to have, to give the answer. So there's, this stuff is so secret that there's just no way this will be published. And I'm sure that the military and the Pentagon are embarrassed that the tape was leaked. It caused them unwanted attention to something that we've been doing for 50 years.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. With what they can do with computers is far surpasses what they had back in the 1960s and 70s when you were working there.
Electronic warfare is, that's the thing of the present and the future. And this is all probably started with Project Palladium, but we never stopped because even Area 51, it's no secret. For example, the talking radar, we couldn't get our hands on one, but we learned enough about it that we built our own so that we could simulate what the Russians would be seeing. And one of the big things, when I was out there, I was an expert in Soviet radar. And during the Six-Day War, Israel captured all sorts of Soviet radar, and we had it at Area 51. And we would actually use it as we were developing stealth. We needed to see what the Russians would be seeing. So we'd use their own equipment to for our use, our evaluations. So and put it this
Really?
way, we turned Area 51 into a laboratory. So say, and I'll just give you just broad example. Say that Texas Instrument came out with some kind of module that fits on a B-52 that does something or other, against something that China's got or Russia's got. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to fly over China or Russia to test it. They fly over Area 51.
Right.
We got the
Yeah,
capability.
you just rebuild their setup and then
You know,
test it against theirs.
you might say I won't say we reverse engineered, but that's not a good word. But we are able to duplicate what they got, and
So
they do the same thing, I'm sure.
I see, and if you go on Google Earth, I'm sure a lot of people have done this and searched around the vicinity of Area 51, especially in the area like Dogbone, Dry Lake. There's like these makeshift cities. Are those like set up like cities that are built to do these kind of test runs and bombing missions, or what are those for on the map? I always see them out there.
Area 51 is no longer Area 51 in the sense that it was. When we were there, it was 60 square mile block box out there. The Air Force took it over. Now it is part of the Nellis Gunnery Range. It's 9 million acres.
Mm,
It's still got a no-fly zone, and in it, but it is. No, they don't even refer to it now as Area 51.
hmm.
It's Homey Airport.
Homey Airport.
Homey, yeah, Homey was our code name for Area 51 with the pilots back then, and now it's registered with the you look on your FAA maps and everything. It's registered as a Homey Airport.
Have you ever heard of or been to a facility or a place called S4 or Site 4?
How long were you employed at S4, and when were you hired?
When was I hired at S4? I guess early '89, and I was probably there only about 6 months or so. There was absolutely no ET craft, ET technology, anything like that at Area 51. This is why S4 was made specifically to separate it there. People at Area 51 do not have the clearance.
I haven't been to. I know what it is. Site 4 is where we set up our Russian radar. We put an airstrip in there, and it became a center for Russian radar, for red flag and that sort of thing. And I've read, where Lazar claimed that it was Papoose. There's nothing at Papoose Lake. Absolutely, we had a microwave tower, and that was it. Site 4 was a different direction, but we had a Site 4, yes.
Have you seen the photos of Papoose Lake that we got recently? They were taken by a pilot named Gabe Zeifman, who flew over it, and took some photos of it. I'm gonna pull them up on the screen. So you don't think that there's any way that they could have hidden a base inside this little mountain side here?
No, and we didn't have that kind of activity going on back then. But
would they have a need? Would they have a need for another secret, more secret facility than Area 51, or was the security at Area 51 already sufficient?
It was sufficient, and what we didn't want people to see at Area 51, we moved it to a Tonopah test range. The Russians knew we were there, and particularly when we started flying their MiGs out there, and so we didn't want them to know how many MiGs we had, whatever. So we actually moved the squadron to Tonopah, and as well as the F-117s. They shared the same airstrip. I had a hangar on each end. So we had other sites. If something really, really super sensitive, we could move them out of where the Russians were looking, because they'd be looking at us.
What do you think would have happened to you if you had left work and gone down to John Lear's driveway and gotten interviewed with George Knapp on KLAS and spilled some scientific secrets about what was going on inside the base?
there's really no way I can prove it without revealing my identity and getting myself into more trouble than I have already.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin, and they're basically being dismantled. Some are, well, in various stages of completion, built from other parts, and they're being test flown and basically just analyzed.
I've certainly lost my clearance for sure. That's the worst thing. And of course, in our profession, losing your security clearance, that meant you that's the end of your career. But that's all never entered any of our minds, something like that. We didn't even talk to each other than on need to know. Kind of give you your ears an idea on this. There was 30 in my group, special projects group. We were working for the CIA Science and Technology. We were all contractors, and we all had different specialties. And after Oxcart moved out, up to one point, the only thing on site was the first was U2, and then later it was the A12 Project Oxcart. But once we got the MiGs in, that changed the whole ball game. The A12 guys that's still on site couldn't even come in our building because we were working on the stealth and we was working on the MiGs. And then it got later on, it got where we had other customers. This is after we quit flying the A12 and U2s out of there. And there'd be a point where even within my group, you didn't ask, what are you working on or who you doing it for or how's it work? We knew basically what each other was doing. And if you needed help with something, you'd say, hey, Joe, come give me a hand with this. But you didn't ask, who are you doing this for? Or what is it? How does it work? You shouldn't ask. And you would be highly offended if someone had asked you that too.
People are asking about the models up in your background behind you on the shelf, and
that's all the stuff I worked on. I've worked on every one of those. It's the X-15, the lifting bodies that became the space shuttle, the MiGs. Then of course, I got my Hawk missile and my Nike Hercules missile back there. But yeah, every one of those I got to work on.
that's awesome. So you never worked on any sport models?
When I was let in, it was the first time I saw the sport model in the hangar sitting down, and I was told they could have walked me in the front door, but they purposely wanted to walk me by it. I was told not to say anything and just keep my eyes forward and walk past the disc into the office area.
I don't see any sport model behind.
No, we didn't work on the sport model.
They don't got any no saucers they're testing on out there at the base at all?
No, we didn't know. This is get me in trouble, but we called a lot of our proof of concept, like the bird of prey and the attack at blue and some of those. We call them platforms, which was at the time. No one knew about it. The UFO thing didn't start until 1969, 1980, when the CIA had to turn Area 51 over to the Air Force. That's when word got out that the CIA had been operating for 20 years at this place out in the desert in Nevada, and everybody wondered what in the world had they been doing for 20 years. And that's when the story started with the Roswell and all of that. For 20 years, no one knew what we were doing. But it's only when the Air Force, and that's the reason the CIA had to start with, they could keep a secret. The Air Force couldn't. So, George, that Area 51 would be the worst place in the world for the thing that the Czar and different ones claim was going on out there. Because you had all the transit people going in and out, carpenters and guys working on the runway and all that kind of stuff, and the cooks and so and various contractors. No way you could have kept secret. Plus, you had the Russians had these satellites coming over regularly. They were spying on us out there. So that would be the worst place in the world. And as I told George, I said the best place. What I would do with a secret program like that is find some little island out in the middle of the Mississippi River someplace, and call it the mad cow disease research or something or other. Have little signs on the door there. Hide in plain sight. That's the point. Hide it in plain sight, and everybody would say, "Hey, they tested something out there, you know." But Area 51 was was so monitored, put it that way, that it had been almost impossible. And plus, knowing how security worked out there, there's no one anyone could have worked out there and it'd be not known. It just didn't work that way.
Yeah.
I can't go into a lot of detail like that, but I don't care if you're the 4-star general or congressman, you could not just walk into Area 51. Period.
Do you think that Bob Lazar was us playing a game on the Russians? Do you think that maybe that he was like brought out and shown some bunch of crap just to like throw them off?
I've never been able to figure Bob out where he got caught up into this. He's a very smart individual from what I can tell. And but there's others. We've even had guys that, particularly as he got older, that would start making claims that were just out of this world, and they knew better. I think it was whether you getting senile or what. And the thing is, and this might be beneficial to your listeners, is these proof of concept things, different models. Well, say Boeing is competing with Lockheed. Well, Boeing up in Seattle would build their prototype and test it on their range. Lockheed would have their whatever they were going to test and be testing it down in Burbank or wherever. And it didn't. Then they would bring it out to Area 51, and that was part of the big secrets too, because Lockheed wouldn't want Boeing to know what they were testing, and vice versa. So that's one of the things that we did not talk shop about each other. We didn't tell tales on what we just got through testing. But they were our customers, and then the Navy or whoever was going to buy this would come in, and they were a customer. We had 2 customers out there, the buyer and the seller, but we had the equipment and the technology, the technical people to show us what you got, and that's what we would do. They would put it through the paces with our equipment and stuff that we had over radar, data processing and whatever, and then we would hand it over to the customer. Here's what they got, and. A lot of the testing that went on out there, I'll give you an example with the MiG program. We were we put our MiGs up against the Army, the Air Force and the Navy. And for example, when the Air Force wanted to test their F-84s, they had a couple of National Guard pilots up in New Jersey fly down. They didn't tell them that you're on Area 51. They just told me, we got a classified mission, you're going to go up against a foreign aircraft at Nellis Air Force Base. And they actually did the test over Area 51, but those pilots never knew it. They never knew they was over Area 51.
You ever heard of a guy named Mike Thigpen?
I've heard the name, yeah.
Is that a real name or someone that worked out there, or is that one of those?
I don't.
Or what about Dennis Mariani?
No, they never worked out there. Now, we did use pseudo names. The CIA assigned us names, and yeah,
right. You were Thunder, right? Was that your name?
Me Thunder. My group, we didn't necessarily go by the pseudo names. We all had nicknames, but the pilots, not everyone like that. Anyone that's flying in particular had they did not use their real names. They got the names, CIA got the names off of gravestones in Europe. And you read their accident reports, and it'll be under someone else's name. And this is what's really funny. I'm a member of the SR-71 group too. And I just kind of say I'm in the loop with everything that's going on. And they contacted me, the webmaster, me and some of the others, about 6 months ago, showing that we got a roster of everyone that ever flew in a Blackbird RU-2. We know exactly if it's just an hour, 10 minutes, everyone ever said. Anyway, we had this name cropped up. This guy made his 3rd flight in the Blackbird A-12, and the SR-71 guy got all excited, but never heard of him. And he contacted me, and I started laughing because that was the pseudo name of the base commander at Area 51. It showed up on his flight records using the pseudo name instead of his real name. But what was funny, the SR-71 guys, just 6 months ago, did not know that we use pseudo names. and that just blew my mind. I thought everybody knew
Yeah.
that.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, that's another layer of operational security, even further obscure information. So even the guys that were the 15 guys that you went to Lake Mead with, your buddies from the group, you didn't even know their real names, or is
No, we knew each other's real name,
oh
but we used the pilots in particular used pseudonyms on all the records and stuff like that. But yeah, we knew everybody's true name.
cool. So how about these foggles? Have you ever heard of these another layer of OPSEC thing I heard about was these goggles that they made you wear, which limited your vision, your sight, and would blur everything around you. Have you ever heard of something like that or had to wear those?
No, I never heard of them.
So I think that those came along in the mid 70s to later. I don't think those were around when you were there.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I know a lot of the people that even work out there even today, but work during the all through the ages, but particularly with roadrunners, security guard, and all the people are in our roadrunners. No one's ever mentioned them. We had a lot of strange stuff flew out there, and that's what a lot of these stories came out. But we call them technology demonstrators or proof of concept. And for example, with the HAB Blue that became the F-117, long before the HAB Blue, and you talk to Lockheed HAB Blue guys, and they didn't know this, but Lockheed actually brought a prototype out in 1969, and we did our radar cross section on it. And that was the prototype for the HAB Blue. So they needed something to present, to bid for the contract. When they laid out the contract, they'll say, here's what we've already got. And they got the contract. So you had a lot of that stuff going on. They would build it and test it out of Area 51. So we had all the people and they had all the equipment to do it.
So is there one contractor out at Area 51 or is there multiple contractors? Because, I kind of want to, you mentioned that like it's the CIA running the show out there. They're the main, boss, but you worked for different contractors or different groups. Sometimes you weren't even sure who specifically you were working for, just that they were briefed into the project and cleared to be your manager. Talk about that a little bit. And I know EG&G is the main contractor out there, but they're not the only one.
No, EG&G carried us on their payroll most of the time. There was a period out there when we would actually run out of projects, and they would loan us out to atomic bomb tests until they got some funds in for the next project. So we called it the black world, the white world. And so I got to participate in, I think it's 5 atomic bomb tests. And before then, once we got the funds in or whatever, then I disappeared back into the black world. So we got to do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't expect. But in those instances, we would be hidden on someone else's payroll. So when they formed the Science and Technology Director to CIA, that was actually the U-2 program, and they had tried to make the U-2 stealth. They learned enough, even though they weren't successful with it, that they wanted to continue with it. And that was the Science and Technology's only baby at the time. And so they got rid of all the guys that the EG&G had brought in for the test site. And the CIA picked their own people they wanted on special projects. But then the EG&G had to carry us on their special activities payroll. That was the cover. But everything had a cover on it. Because less than 5% of people ever working in Area 51 ever knew the CIA was even involved. This working out there. It's only a select. But you had you talk about contractors. We had multiple contractors, but they for projects, they come in and they come and go. And that's another thing that shoots down the czar and people's stories on this. Because the only permanent people out there was the CIA communications people, the people that for the mess hall and that sort of thing, and my group. All the rest were customers, and they would come in and we would service them, and they might be there just like the MIG program. They come in for a month flying maybe the MiG-17, and then we'd never see them again. So their contractors come and go. And a lot of times it would be a university, had a grant for the government, and they'd bring it out there for us to test. That we were just the laboratory to do the testing. Show us what you got.
What about the ID badges and hand scanners? Do you remember them having hand scanners when you went out into the facility, or ID badges? And
We didn't. We actually used the. In fact, we got our badges at the Atomic Energy Commission. We had the same badges they used at the Nevada test site. The only difference was we had the number 8 was on ours. They had numbers which designated what area you could go into, and ours had an 8 on it. Anyone with an 8 on their badge had access to Area 51. But they were identical to those worn by the Atomic Energy Commission workers.
And you said the food at Area 51 was some of the best food you've ever had.
Absolutely the best. Everybody will say that. Thursday night was steak night. All you eat steak night. Well, the mess hall stayed open 24 hours a day, but you could count on the transport planes from Burbank. Everybody came out to Area 51. They found the reason they need to be out there on Thursday just so they can eat steak. But we were sending our engines for the A-12 back to the East Coast. I think Delaware. That Pratt Whitney was repairing them. Anyway, we equipped our C-130 with a compartment to bring back lobster. And we loaded it with lobster and on dry ice and all kinds of seafood, and then bring back all kinds of seafood on every trip, And we kind of funny story. We had a C-130 run into a problem one time, had to land somewhere, and they couldn't figure out why we were trying to rush them so much. We were afraid we were going to ruin our seafood. But yeah, we had CIA made sure that we had the best food in the world. I've been asked several times who was the most famous man at Area 51. In fact, the CIA asked me that about 3 or 4 years ago. No, they asked me, this is during Black History Month. They asked me who was the most famous black man. But it turned out he's the most famous man, period. And that was our cook, Murphy Green. He was there for generations. You go to Lockheed today, and a lot of those guys still know Murphy Green. He stayed there, generations of workers. But Murphy, you remember the Seinfeld movie? They had the soup Nazi.
Oh yeah.
All right, Murphy Green was the soup Nazi. He run that mess hall his way. I don't care if you were an admiral. I don't care who you were. You went Murphy Green's rules in his mess hall, and everyone loved him, But he run it his way. He would tell you, but we didn't have that many black people out there at the time. But very restricted.
So in your opinion, do you think we're alone in the universe, or are we being visited? Well, that's a bit different. Two different questions. So, are we alone in the universe? Would you?
No, I don't think we're alone in the universe. But I just never been able to have any reason to believe that we're being visited. You see stuff, you don't know what it is, but it's put it this way: none of the pilots or any of us ever. And I worked with, SR-71, all these guys. Never once I ever heard one say, "Boy, did I see something strange today?" Or did you see nose prints on the windshield of the plane from looking at UFO? They just never. The thought never entered their minds. It's a topic that never comes up. I'm sure that a lot of your people have heard of the Aurora. And they've seen it. Well, I'll tell you what the Aurora was. Now we had a proof of concept plane that we were testing out there. It never had a name, and it was seen at the same time. People had found some appropriation records, or a lot of money been appropriated for a project named Aurora. And they said, aha, that's what's flying out of Area 51. Here's the money for it. Aurora, during the B-2 bomber, when they were building it, they went way, way, way over budget. And the only way they could get the money to finish the B-2 bomber was to generate a fictitious project and get it appropriated through Congress. And that was Project Aurora. That was for the B-2 bomber.
So that whole thing was fictitious. So that was
Just
because that started all kinds of rumors that it was a whole nother project, and that's what.
They were seeing stuff. They didn't put two and two together. Now, this is another reason no one knew about what the CIA was doing, is we did not have to go to Congress to get our money. We were unvouchered. We did not have to account for our money.
So this gets me into my the next thing I want to talk about, which is, have you ever heard of a guy named Edgar Fouché?
Not really.
Edgar Fouché, he claims that he worked out there in the late 70s to in early 80s. He talks about these flying platforms and the Aurora project, actually, and he talks about this work that was done on a second, that they had a TR-3A craft, which we know about. It was kind of disclosed in I think this 1991 in Popular Mechanics and stuff. But there's also this rumor of that there's a TR-3B, which is a separate model, which is a specific kind of anti-gravity platform. And I was wondering if you had ever heard of any kind of experiments being done with, on anti-gravity. Anti-gravity. I've documented a lot of stuff on anti-gravity. Nothing specifically that was done out at Area 51 that I know of. A lot of that research was done elsewhere by a lot of other private aerospace companies and stuff. Are you aware of any kind of anti-gravity research that was done at Area 51?
Not Area 51. I had heard rumors that Northrop was playing with that, but it never came to us at Area 51.
Anything about rotating plasma or rotating mercury?
We were experimenting with plasma guns. We were for stealth. We were going to use those in 812, and we went through a project. We had two different projects, and it actually worked. We're shooting ion beams ahead of the plane. Different techniques we were using, but the problem was it added weight to the plane. Plus, and you had to shield the pilots from radiation. When we painted the U-2s, we were flying them silver at first, and they were being spotted, and they were UFOs. There was nothing supposed to be able to fly that high. So we decided to paint them.
So it was a lot of SR-71 pilots that were also recruited to, fly experimental test planes as well, right? That's the kind of people that they would recruit generally, or who would be the type of people that would be recruited to be flying, the experimental aircrafts and stuff?
They were the way the recruiting works, and I'll tell you on the CIA, and then go back to your question, is the Air Force would actually pick their top people, and then they would send them back to CIA, and they would be interviewed back there. They give them tests and stuff. It'd be in some little building somewhere, some motel or something. And the pilots themselves wouldn't know what they were interviewing for, and they'd give them it's over a period of months. And those that survived the first set of tests would be called back, and eventually, if they passed everything, they'd send them to Lovelock Medical in Albuquerque, the same evaluation medical that they gave the astronauts. If they passed that, they'd say, we'd like you to accept a highly classified job. And the pilot would say, well, what is it? And they said, we can't tell you. Well, where is it? Well, it's west of Mississippi. And the pilots, honest to God, did not know what you're going to fly until they landed at Area 51 and opened the hangar doors. And that's when they knew what they were going to fly.
this. So one of the questions people had is, why should we believe you, TD? How do we know that you're not working for the government to cover up the truth about Bob Lazar?
I don't have an answer for that. You just gonna have to do it.
So you're allowed to talk about Project Idealist, Oxcart, Have Drill, Have Ferry, Have Donut. So all those ones were
Yeah, they've been declassified.
they've all been declassified and stuff, and those were like, they captured a Russian MiG-17 and a couple other things. I remember John Lear had shown that he'd been one of the first people to go out and walk out to Area 51 and photograph the MiG out there on the tarmac, to the chagrin of much of this, to the CIA's chagrin, when that picture got published and put out there. But and that but yeah, quite an interesting history of stuff that went on out there. But again, you worked up there time periods because people are want to know why you didn't hear about the Foggles and some of this other stuff. You retired. I want to know, like, when you started there, when you retired, and kind of give us an overview of the timeline.
Yeah, I left the project, went into private business in the early 70s. And so I wasn't there.
But you stayed in contact. You're president of the Roadrunners Association.
Yeah, I'm president of Roadrunners, and I'll just say I had family that followed in my footsteps. Okay.
Right. They would recruit a lot of people, because
and I've always been a member of the Nellis Air Force Base support team, that sort of thing. So we have our banquets or luncheons and stuff out at the base, and the people that the commanders that's out there now, or have been even in the past. I worked out there, so we would talk a little bit shop. So I've always been kind of in the loop, and one of my, I'm also the executive director of the Nevada Aerospace Hall of Fame, and one of my board members is a former Area 51 commander out there.
Yeah, so you get some.
And I've still been a consultant. But, well, I'll put it this way: up until this COVID thing, I still go back to CIA headquarters about every 3 months.
Yeah, so you're about as in the loop as you could be. With
even the agency didn't know what all we did, because it was so compartmentalized back then. We didn't allow pencil and paper in a meeting. If we had a meeting, you didn't take notes, and we just didn't talk to even anyone outside of those that need to know. And so when they started declassifying this about 15 years ago, the chief historian of CIA called me up one day and said, "TD, we got a problem. We're declassifying this stuff, and we need some help with it, because we got some stuff that we need to feel whether or not it should be declassified, number one. And number two is we don't know what you guys did." So that's when we started the Roadrunner website and started doing the bios of all the people that worked out there.
Yeah.
And that's how the CIA was able to recover. Because when we turned it over to the Air Force in 1979, we boxed up all of the documents, all the photographs and stuff we had, and we stored them at Norton Air Force Base. And when the CIA got ready to start declassifying this stuff, they contacted Norton and said, we need our records. And Norton had lost everything. Period. So I go back there, and I'll take engineers with me, I'll take pilots with me, and we'll sit down, particularly with the Air Branch, and of course Public Affairs and the historians, and just talk. But and there's stuff going on that naturally I wouldn't know about, or anyone. If you didn't have you don't know, but that's the reason we kept people out. Even go back to U2, Congress was not briefed on that we even had a U2 until shortly before Gary got shot down. They didn't need to know. And that's another reason for the CIA running the show. They did not have to count for their money. They didn't have to go to Congress and beg for money for the U2 or anything else. They had unvouchered funds, and And that's another thing I like to brag about is from the day we signed the contract for the U-2 until the first flight was 8 months, and we were under budget.
So someone told me there's a museum out there with one of everything they've built out there.
No,
There's
we,
not,
we wish that has been something that very, very. Now I understand they do have one out there now, but
because I've heard a lot of stories. That's there's stuff that they've built and they only made one of and then destroyed it.
yeah, a lot of that. Yeah, that happened. We buried a lot of stuff. We got through it. We buried it. Like your two half blue plane. Of course, we crashed both of those, but we didn't want that technology getting off the site, so we would bury. We got a lake called Slater Lake, and it's a boneyard for buried prototypes.
Oh, Alfred C. Loading and like another company out of Avrocar. They built a lot of saucer shaped. This guy worked for Wright Patterson, of course. So I know that they built a lot of these saucer shaped aircraft and everything. Do you know of any kind of testing that was done at Area 51? I know that Area 51 was picked as a test site, but it's not the only place experimental aircraft are tested, correct?
Right, and I don't think those were ever tested. They were not tested while I was out there, and I think that was before or during the time I was out there. I'm familiar with the saucer. They were. And I've read where they were tested. I can't remember it now offhand, but it wasn't at the area. And now you've got three major test areas, particularly today. You got the Nellis Range, which is Area 51, and your gunnery range, your fighter pilots and stuff. And then you got up in Utah, you got a major range that's for bombing, that sort of thing. And then you got a range in Florida that's for I'm not sure that's what all they're doing there, missiles and that sort of thing. But you got three distinct test ranges in the United States. Something that your listener might be interested in is why did they pick Area 51?
Yeah, well, why did they? They said they needed a large flat area, right? Because they said a dry lake bed would be perfect for that. Right?
Nevada, yeah, they looked at a lot of choices, but Nevada at the time had 237,000 people total in the entire state. And during World War II, they thought the Japanese were going to invade the West Coast. So they moved the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Marines, and the Army to Nevada to form a West Coast line of defense. The Coast Guard was on Lake Mead, the Navy was at Fallon and Pyramid Lake, Walker Lake, Marines up was by Reno. The Army had the largest ammunition depot in the world at Hawthorne. So they had all this military activity going on in the state with very few people, and most of them working for the government. So what better place could they have to hide a CIA operation right in the middle of that? And then you had the NASA testing of the X-planes going on across Nevada, and you had the atomic bomb testing.
Wow.
So Nevada was just a natural place to put that sort of thing. We're pioneering that, and then with the MiG program, your viewers may not realize it, the kill ratio against us in Vietnam was 9-1 against us. And the Russians came out with this new MiG-21, a mystery plane. Mm-hmm. And, we thought that was what was, causing the problem. And we got our hands on this, on one of them. Iraqi defected with a brand new MiG-21 to Israel. And Israel owned it to us. And on the first try, the Navy came in and flew what they had against it. On the first try, we got 100% kill against the Navy. And the same thing with the Air Force and the Navy. Within 2 months they realized it was not the plane that was killing our people. We were sending them to Vietnam with no training. And the Navy, within 2 months, started the Top Gun weapons school and just totally turned the kill ratio around. And it took the Air Force until 1991, I think it was. They were still getting whacked in Vietnam, 9-1. We lost 15 planes one day, didn't shoot down a single one.
I had a question from the audience. Do you believe that Roswell was Project Mogul, or do you think that it was? Do you believe that it was Project Mogul, or what do you think about the Roswell thing?
I think it's more than likely that. I've never thought it was anything more technical than that. Because we, back in balloons,
Never,
about the only thing we had going for us.
you never seen any. We know that they played with some foreign technology, like for example, captured MiGs. That they had out there, and they tested and flew around and messed around with, but nothing more advanced than that you're aware of.
And 47, we didn't even have the mix. In fact, we didn't have Area 51 until 1955.
Yeah, till
So,
1955,
so
right?
47, a lot of chatter, because that's where the atomic bombs were stored, with it at Roswell and that sort of thing. There's one theory: if it wasn't the balloons, at the time we were in a joint venture with Canada on a wingless plane. I mean, not a wingless, but all-wing plane, like the one like a B-2. And it didn't work out. But mainly, from what I've heard, is it couldn't handle the atomic bomb. They were wanting to build it for delivery of the atomic bomb. So the United States pulled out of the program, and the Canadians continued with it. And that was the only other explanation at that time. I've got photographs. We had here in Nevada, Northrop was testing the wing type plane, little prototypes and stuff in that same time frame. Well, something like that could have possibly crashed here, but really, I think it was balloons.
So Area 51 didn't exist till 1955. So let's just say that the Air Force had captured a Horton Brothers parabola, for example, post World War II. Where do you think that would have been brought and stored and test flight?
Wright Patterson.
Wright-Pat, right?
Yeah. I spent a year at Wright-Patterson helping before I went to Area 51, on my way to Area 51, to design the black boxes that we used for to evaluate the MiG-21 and the MiG-17s. So I worked in the flight dynamics laboratory at Wright-Patterson for a year, getting ready to start testing the MiGs at Area 51. So that's where you did all your testing, and that's where something like that would have gone.
Is there any deep underground military base like at Area 51 or Wright-Patterson? Is there any, like, I've heard rumors of like more underground stuff there. Have you ever been privy to?
Definitely not at Area 51. We had nothing underground. Not far from that, we had atomic bomb tests all underground in the mesas and stuff. We had little trains, and I got to even go into some of those. And
that movie Black Arrow.
And then we had
Broken Arrow.
We had the NERVA program that I spent 3 months on it, and we actually was testing a nuclear rocket engine. That's the only underground stuff I know of. There wasn't a bit, because Area 51 was at the time that they didn't build anything there. They only tested, and everything had to do with aviation.
So I've been on this side that I too believe that those Nimitz encounters were quite possibly our technology being tested, and I've even spoken to a number of the pilots like Tim McMillan, and others, and I was wondering what would you say to those pilots who insist that these things were not our technology? What kind of would be your response to them? And I mean, how would, because
I tell them that whoever spoofing them was very good at spoofing them, because they just been spoofed. The initial pilots, you can't take it too serious. So they're hooping out, hollering about it. Well, did you see that? They had a lot of fun. And actually, there's no debriefings or anything. No, they didn't say a word about it for years until this video was leaked. And looking through reading that video was leaked. The guy that leaked it was getting ready to be a star in a History Channel documentary on UFOs. So he leaked the video to enhance his standing in his in this film that I think it's declassified. They call it or something or other.
Do you think that Bob Lazar was us playing a game on the Russians? Do you think that maybe that he was like brought out and shown some bunch of crap just to like throw them off?
I've never been able to figure Bob out where he got caught up into this. He's a very smart individual from what I can tell. And but there's others. We've even had guys that, particularly as he got older, that would start making claims that was just out of this world, and they knew better. I think it was whether you get senile or what. And one thing I might clarify for your people that might be interesting, because we run across this all the time. There'd be some politician and running for city council or something other that claims to have flown the SR-71 for the CIA. Put it on his resume, make it look good. And of course, I mentioned earlier we got a roster. We know exactly how many hours, everything that anyone ever flew. But anyway, we get wind of that. But the SR-71, contrary to what popular belief, never ever flew at Area 51. The SR-71 was an Air Force plane. It flew at Edwards Air Force Base and then at Beale, and but it never flew at Area 51. No Air Force pilot ever flew the CIA's A-12. They flew the trainer, yes, but not the one-seater, never. And no CIA pilot ever flew the SR-71. You hear claims and stuff on that, but even George Knapp has made the mistake of identifying the SR-71 and flying at Area 51. But it never flew there. It was strictly Air Force, and we were CIA.
Man, I wish I had a Patreon with some inside members so I could invite people behind the scenes for an after party chat. But I'm gonna wrap this broadcast up here for now, guys. And okay, one more question from Dr. Hongo to end it off. Ask him if he can't answer a question because it's classified. Are you obligated to lie, or do you just say you can't talk about that?
We just say we can't talk about it. And I might mention, a lot of people wondering why we're talking now, but I give talks all the time to universities and stuff, along with the historians from CIA. They actually were joined and come join me with the talks. And we've given talks in the CIA bubble, but most of the university and stuff, we do this all the time because we need the history out there. And it doesn't bother. If someone gets into something that's classified, we just say we can't talk about it. That's not a problem.
Yeah, you're not a trained you've never been trained as a counterintelligence operative. You never worked in counterintelligence. Your expertise in the military was missiles and ECMs and ECCMs and all this stuff.
I'm an electronic nerd.
Yeah, he's an electronics nerd. So yeah, again, he's not a wordsmith and a master mind manipulator like some of these other guys.
These are craft under intelligent control, and they're flying with impunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. This was an awesome interview, man. Thank you so much for taking the time with us and my audience and getting these questions addressed and answered in detail.
That's been our mission, to get the word out, the legacy of what we did, because it's important.
Right, because a lot of people think that it's there's a hanger out there with 9 discs in it, and that's all there is out there, and that everyone else is lying who doesn't talk about that. So.
Wasn't quite that exciting. Actually, frankly, much more boring for me than working on the NASA range. On NASA, we were flying X-15, X-70, and almost every day we had a mission. But think about particularly after we got the harsh card, and we were just doing stealth. And the MiGs, they'd bring a prototype out and we'd look at it, and we might not see it again for 3 months. And we're out there 5 days a week, all day long, with nothing to do. And until it grew later, we got more projects, but there for a while. You just sit there, and of course we had all these toys and stuff, and we did a lot of stuff. Just a bunch of engineers that was bored, and we go out and we had all these toys and do it. And so we did a lot of things out there just on our own out of curiosity. I wonder what this would do or how this would work. And we became famous for Air Force, and people didn't dare leave a plane sitting on the tarmac because we'd have it out on the pylon and taking a look at it with all of our radar.
Again, what happened to those people that blew the gate at Area 51 and drove into the place? Did they just arrest them, charge them with trespassing, and release them?
Yeah, they arrest them and fine them. The sheriff would fine them $500 and let them go. And
yeah,
because no one ever got to see anything. It was really classified out there.
No, well, it's like 17 miles from the gate to the actual facility. So
and everything was pretty well hidden out there. And we had security out there. They couldn't even have gotten close to the facility without getting hammered. And
what if you had like a whole group of people and they Naruto ran like that? You ever seen that? It would never work to storm Area 51,
it
right?
wouldn't work. I guarantee it wouldn't work.
So, what do you say to those people that oh man, that was just did you take it seriously? Did you think that they were actually going to do it?
Well, we framed it. I got interviewed a time or two on that, and I said, you better be thinking about the liability. Someone gets hurt, they're going to just sue the dickens out of whoever organized this. It had a lot of problems. I wasn't worried about them getting on the facility, but it was just. But that's always been a problem for them out there when they were doing. People going in and trying to spy on what was going on and stuff. And there were times when they had to shut a project down until it was clear. But not very often. But
like Lazar and his friends climbing Tickaboo Peak, right?
Yeah, they climb up there, and one year we was having our Roadrunner reunion. I talked to the base commander out of Nellis. I said, we're going to have a lot of our A-12 pilots in town. Would you like for them to come out and talk to some of your pilots? And he said, no, I got a better idea. And I told them the CIA was going to be there. And they actually brought the store and everything. And we had a lot of CIA people. He said, we're having a problem with people coming out of Rachel and try and spy on the facility out there. He said, why don't you guys go out to Rachel so they can see that you're not little green men? And we'll do a flyover at the same time. We'll do a joint thing. So we did. We had over to almost 400 people here for the reunion, and they actually CIA actually set up the store on the pool table at Rachel for the locals. We went there. We called them alien burgers. We all had an alien burger, but we loaded up. Jordan Knapp was there, and a lot of media was there for it. And the Air Force did a flyover. And I talked to the base commander about 3 months later. He said, you know what? That reduced about 80% of the problem we had. When people met you guys and realized you just like us, and it was kind of funny, but and now they accept it. Local people, I don't believe that there's any aliens or anything like that anymore out there. They don't go for that.
Well, it's good for the tourists, right?
It is. Oh yeah. I got photographs of the chief historian of the CIA modeling with some of the alien little mannequins they had there, and had his wife with it. And he said, "Now I met some of your relatives." And no, we had a lot of fun out of it.
So, is there a process that a project when a project becomes declassified? Do the CIA call you up and say, "Hey, such and such has been declassified. You can talk about this now," or what's the process that?
Pretty well, they usually went through me on this because I was working with the historian and stuff. But when they declassified Area 51, they actually flew us back to CIA, and we got a picture taken with the director and all that kind of stuff. And we gave a presentation in the bubble, and that's when the Dr. Robart, the chief historian, he announced that we could talk about Area 51. It had been declassified, and he was the moderator for us, and he used the word Area 51 about 15 times. He said, "I'm doing it because I can." And this was actually in 2009. Officially, the word got out through FOIA request in 2013, but they actually authorized us to talk about Area 51 in 2009.
What about the earliest Foo Fighters sighting in World War II is like 1942 or something? Do you think we had what do you think that was? Or
I have no idea on that.
yeah, that's like a long time before. People are talking the drones. This is way after your time, and then this is the 40s is before your time. So
but the Russians were getting advanced pretty quickly. And they,
yeah. Well, they were seen over Battle of Britain and stuff too. With the
it's amazing now how much Russia declassified the stuff they were doing. And I got a book that's coming out this next month. It's about the CIA at Area 51, but I've got a lot of the stuff that the Russian side of what they were doing while we were doing something. And that's been real interesting. In fact, let me grab it.
Oh, this is good. This is good, man.
My publisher sent me this book. Look, get here. This is a book on the Russia's Area 51.
Oh, yes.
So my publisher published this book, and then they sent it to me, and then had access to the Russian side, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, and even going all the way back to the Korean War. And so I was able to include a lot of stuff that's going to be brand new. A lot of people didn't know about. The one main thing is the name of the book is CIA Station D, Area 51. Very few people, even CIA, knew that it was a CIA station back then. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons we had to turn it over to the Air Force. Is Jimmy Carter found out about it, and he said, I can't allow the CIA to have a station in the United States. And he made us turn Area 51 over to the Air Force.
When did the Russians crack anti-gravity?
I don't know about that.
So there's a rumor going around that we cracked it in 1954. That's what Stephen Greer says, and a couple other guys say. Do you think there's any possibility of that?
I don't know. I don't have any.
I don't think.
I really don't. I kind of doubt it. You know, people don't realize the problem we had building engines for the Blackbirds. We blew up engines. You know, Pratt Whitney built our engines, but build an engine that could fly a plane faster than a bullet at 90,000 feet. Boy, that was a feat. Because even like take the U-2s, you know, they had very powerful engines on them, but at altitude, at full thrust, the engine at full power, at altitude, the U-2 had the engine about the same power it would have idling on the runway, on the tarmac. So you didn't have any air up there. So building the engines to get these planes up those altitudes and speeds, it's just we went through all kind of problems with that. So we didn't have any help with it.
And what do you think about Annie Jacobs, right? Her book on Area 51. What do you think about her take on some of this?
We liked it. Annie did most of her interviews right here in my office, and then she went at the last chapter when she decided to do the UFO thing. It's just put it this way: she's not welcome at any of our events. She tried to come back and go through the Atomic Testing Museum one day. They wouldn't even let her in the door. But she threw everyone under the bus. But she got a lot of sales. You know, that's sales, but she knew it wasn't true. And I know the guy that she got the interview from, and he told me he was 90 years old. And she kept bugging me. He said, give me something, give me something, give me something. So he joked at her with this tale, joking. And I was here when Bill, his name was Nightline, he actually was sitting in my house there interviewing Annie after that. And why did you why did you print that? She said, he said it, so by him saying I could use it. He said, because he said it is okay. And he said, well, he knew it wasn't true. It doesn't matter. He said it, so I used it. You'll see some of the interviews.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know. It's a little more revealing.
Oh, she told Nightline. You know, I went on Nightline the night the book came out and said it was under hogwash, and And so they pressured her on it. She said, "Well, I got 7 lawyers." And he said, "Why do you need all those lawyers if it's the truth?" So she did it to sell her book, and it works. Let's face it, that does sell. A lot of people like to read that.
Well, man, it's getting late here. It's been an hour and 40, almost 50 minutes here, 46 minutes. So, I mean, I was going to end a little ways a while back, but I just came up with more stuff that people kept throwing out there, and then we just kept it going. But I want to end it before it hits 2 hours, because people complain my streams are too long and they're not digestible. So I wanted to. I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe we'll come up with if someone will come up with some more questions if they have for you. Maybe we'll get you on some other shows here too. I'm sure there's some people watching that just learned about you for the first time, and hopefully spark some interest in people that want to learn the real history, and and have the right, are at least knowledgeable enough to ask the right questions, to know that you are an honest man. I believe I haven't taken issue with anything that you've said here. This was all gold, and I don't have any reason to this is
Well,
some people say.
I grew up on a ranch, and that's all we knew was handshake and honesty.
Yes, man. So this weekend we have the APEC conference, guys. So stay tuned for that on Saturday. The APEC conference is the Alternative Propulsion Engineering Conference, where we have engineers and physicists from the Zoom and the online community. We have a big Zoom meeting, and we all talk about how to engineer anti-gravity, warp drives, and new propulsion technologies and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check out that. That's what we do every other Saturday, and we talk to the people from NASA and Boeing and Northrop and all the people who worked on this kind of stuff, and try to push this field forward into the space age and beyond. So that's what we do, and I'm of course the alien scientist, and alienscientist.com. TD, anything you want to plug before people go?
No, I think they want to know more, just Google my name.
Yes, thank you for your service to this country, and thank you for your amazing work and sharing that history with us.
My pleasure.